Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge, My Chemical Romance's sophomore album, which saw them break out into one of the most popular rock bands of the 2000s. Many people consider this to be one of the greatest albums of that era, and I'd have to agree. I'm really excited to talk about Three Cheers. It's such an amazing record and one of my favorites of all time. There are a lot of talks on subjects of suicide, depression, drugs, and all that fun stuff in this video, so if that makes you uncomfortable, I'd recommend watching something else. I will be including the 2 bonus tracks from Life on the Murder Scene just for some more coverage in case that's what you were looking for. Now let's get into it. Enjoy. Starting off at number 14 is Hang 'em High. If you watched my previous video about the first album, Bullets, then you'll probably notice that this last place entry is much higher rated than the one from that video. That's how much of a jump this album made from the previous one. Hang 'em High is definitely the weakest track from Three Cheers. It has very similar energy to much of Bullets, which worked at some points but not others. I think the verses are what brings this song down. They feel too hastily put together and screamy in a bad way. The chorus though isn't nearly as bad. Nothing special, but it's fine. My favorite part is probably the screaming in the outro. I know that goes against what I just said about the screamy verses, but the screaming in outros is almost always really good. Additionally, I feel like the whistling in the intro is pretty out of place. It brings this old western movie energy into the song where it wasn't really needed, which actually happens a few times in this album, really. This track feels like the Three Cheers version of Our Lady of Sorrows, and surprisingly, I think MCR executed the short energy pack style better in the first album. Overall, Hang 'em High isn't bad by any means, it just doesn't shine as much as the many other great songs on the record. I know a lot of people really love Desert Song, and I'm sorry, but I just don't. I have a lot of the same complaints that I had with Early Sunsets in my last video. The vocals are just too raw. I guess I'm pretty sure Gerard was actually drunk during the recording, and it kinda shows. While I can recognize the insane amount of skill Gerard has to let the emotions flow, it doesn't always work. A lot of vocals are very slurred and unpolished, which is really the only gripe I have, but it's a big one. On to the positives, the instrumentals are pretty nice, obviously nothing too special, but they do a good job of setting the pace and letting Gerard do his thing. My favorite part is probably when Gerard's repeating the word morgue over and over. That connects pretty well to the message of the track, which from what I can tell is mostly about drug abuse, suicide, depression, all those fun things, you know. Sometimes I imagine that the end of the song is the singer fading out into death because of suicide or something. The ending definitely has that type of energy to it. Desert Song, while it can be pretty beautiful, the vocal style just usually isn't for me. Give 'em Hell Kid is one of the most forgettable tracks MCR has made, for me. It's actually a pretty decent song, but nothing about it jumps out at all. I suppose the intro is pretty iconic, and the overly drowned out vocals in the verses are very recognizable, but there's no part that I can confidently say is my favorite. I think the consistent quality throughout the song, while being decent, hinders the memorability. For example, there are parts of Desert Song and Hang 'em High that are better than any part of this song, but Give 'em Hell Kid's quality is higher overall. It's hard to explain, but I think you get what I mean. I don't really have a lot to say except that Give 'em Hell Kid is respectable, but nothing special, again. I rarely, if ever, skip it when listening to the album. The Jet Set Life is Gonna Kill You has moved around my ranking a lot over the years. Sometimes it hits hard and other times it's kinda dull. For that reason, I decided to put it at a 7.25 out of 10. I generally try to stay out of the .25s whenever possible, but occasionally I have to make an exception. I think the difference maker from the previous entry to this is the outro. The outro is definitely my favorite part of the song by far. The reference to the bridge but with heavier guitars and darker toned vocals really sell the ending for me. My only real complaint is that, similar to Hang 'em High, the Jet Set Life has some unneeded western energy, which just... why? I feel like in that one Scooby-Doo episode with like ghosts or something trying to catch people in a saloon. That's a super obscure reference, but just what I think of. I think the song and Hang 'em High feel a bit out of place on the album because of the weird western sound, but they're not necessarily bad. Another thing though, a lot of people seem to be obsessed with Gerard saying Hotel Bella Muerte, which yeah, I guess it's cool, but the amount of fangirling I see over that line makes me cringe whenever I hear it. Sorry. Anyways, the Jet Set Life is pretty nice, but just not as good as the rest of the album. Getting into what I would call the A tier, we have Bury Me in Black. This is one of the 2 bonus tracks featured in Life on the Murder Scene, and just like its counterpart Desert Song, people go crazy for this one. It's more understandable than the former, for me at least, as I prefer heavy music over sad music generally, but I still think this song is slightly overrated. Sorry, but it's still not as good as most of the album. Nevertheless, Bury Me in Black is still definitely a respectable member of MCR's discography, taking its place alongside many of the tracks from Bullets as one of the band's heaviest pieces. This song rocks a lot. Literally every single second of the runtime is filled with either Ray's amazing guitar, Gerard screaming, or ear-shattering drums, and it's great. Stylistically, Bury Me in Black, as I mentioned before, is very similar to the first album in its heaviness, unpolished vocal and instrumental style, and overall sinister and desperate atmosphere. That comparison just goes to show that Bullet's reputation as an album full of demos isn't too far-fetched. Don't get me wrong though, I still love Bullets. I think the main reason that so many people fangirl over this track is that it was the last time we got to see Gerard go truly crazy with the screaming. To add to that intense instrumentals, and you have yourself a timeless classic that is sure to get you ostracized from all of your friends. Good song. I Never Told You What I Do for a Living, which I'll just refer to as I Never Told You for convenience, is the closing track from Three Cheers. I'd say it's very fitting of that spot. It's by no means the best musically, but the energy shifts throughout the runtime along with the lyrics make this the perfect final song of the story of the Demolition Lovers. I have a lot to say about the story and meaning, so just be prepared. I Never Told You is the end of the concept that MCR created in their first two albums, providing the conclusion to the bone-chilling and heart-wrenching tale of this couple of criminals who, at the end of the first album Bullets, are falling, presumably to their deaths, in a gunfight. This album, Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge, continues that concept with the man going to hell, after which he's told by the devil that his wife is still alive, and that the man must deliver to the devil the souls of 1,000 evil men if he ever wants to see her again. I Never Told You What I Do for a Living is the depressing close of that story, where the man has delivered 999 souls to the devil, only to find out that he's been punked, and that he is in fact the 1,000th soul. It's a very sad and anticlimactic ending, just like MCR in 2014. Sorry, I got a little emotional. But back to the song. The last minute and a half or so is mostly just the man screaming, "I tried," over and over again, which is his last hurrah before he's inevitably cast into the pits of hell to burn for his sins forever. The fact that I just explained all of that so casually is a sign that us MCR fans are in fact not okay. Call me crazy, but I've noticed that the musical structure of this track is uncannily parallel to the entire story of the Demolition Lovers, at least for the most part. It starts off with this sort of all-over-the-place, fast-paced, on-the-run from the law type feel, which is a large part of the first album. Mixed in with those high-energy sections or more sad and somber tunes, which can be Drowning Lessons and Early Sunsets vibes. After that, the gunfight from the end of the previous record is represented by the change of pace and lyrics about getting a shot to the head. The next minute or so of the runtime is very screamy, condensing the story of this album, Three Cheers, into the repeated screaming of "I tried." Then after that is the last 30 seconds, which begin with the man screaming, "I can't clean the blood off the sheets of my bed," which could be referring to either his lover or the 999 men he killed. That line seems to be his last and stand before he realizes that he's doomed in the remaining 20 seconds. The line, "And we're all dead now," is a perfect regretful ending to this epic tale. I know I'm probably reading way too far into this, but overthinking is my job. What can you do? In conclusion, I Never Told You is an amazing send-off for the album. It's just lower on the ranking because my enjoyment of it is very circumstantial. It's not a fashion statement, it's a death wish, or death wish for convenience, is the third to last track from Three Cheers, giving it a position close to the end of the story. I promise I won't go as deep into this one as I did with I Never Told You, but I still gotta talk about it a little bit. Death Wish seems to be a frenzy of anger, desperation, and animalistic desire, as a man seems to flip-flop between loving and hating his lover. On one side, he seems vengeful against his lover, wanting to make her go through all the same pain he had to endure. Some of the lines in the first verse especially hint at themes of her betrayal and selfish apathy to him during their lifetime, which displays some of the reasons why he's so out for revenge. But on the other side of the coin, he's still obsessed with her, repeatedly expressing his wish to be reunited with her, and reassuring himself that they will one day be together. Most of the angrier and more vindictive ideas from the man come during the first half of the song, with the desperate wishes to be together again coming later on. Within just one track, he goes from hating her back to loving her, which is just amazing work lyrically by the band. He realizes that he misses her, which transitions perfectly into the next track in order, Cemetery Drive. Musically, the song is very solid, similarly to I Never Told You. Death Wish uses a very unorthodox structure, but MCR being MCR, they still pull it off really well. Ray Toro is a beast, as always. I even get slight Black Veil Brides vibes from from the part at 2.5 minutes in with the guitars. This track would be much higher on almost any other album, but the greatness of Three Cheers keeps it at number 8. Cemetery Drive is the penultimate track of this album, acting as a masterful transition between Death Wish and I Never Told You. This song is famous for being a melancholy confession from the man in the couple, with recurring themes of suicide, bittersweet feelings, and regret. The reason I said this was the perfect transition between the two tracks is that during Cemetery Drive, the man again seems to realize some of the things he hates about his lover. That mostly deals with her manipulating him to do what she wants, and her kiss, while being sweet in the moment, always ends up hurting him in the end and making him unable to leave. It's a truly toxic relationship, just like Doc Rivers and the 76ers last season. As for the actual music, Cemetery Drive uses acoustic sounds in the verses and metallic sounds in the chorus and bridge. That switching between different types of guitar correlate directly to the lyrics, with the chorus being the man's breaking point, where he's always either sad or angry. And I need to give a special mention to Gerard's vocals in this one. Without a doubt, one of his most emotional performances of the record. He never disappoints. Almost. But yeah, Cemetery Drive is a great song. It would be top 3 or 4 on most albums, but this is 3 cheers, so it'll have to be at number 7. Thank You for the Venom is known for being one of MCR's most in-your-face, heavy, and angry tracks of the post-Bullets era. Its message seems to be the man screaming at some other character to give him all they got. That's supported by the lines, "Give me all your poison, give me all your pills, and give me all your hopeless hearts and make me ill," from the chorus. A man that shows that, even in the face of adversity, he's going to stand tall and never waver, no matter what anyone tries to do. He boasts to his enemy, whether that's the devil, the man he's killing, or even his lover. He says, "You're running after something that you'll never kill," showing that nothing can stop him. That's kind of what I get from the lyrics. This is one of the more difficult tracks for me to look into lyrically, since the verses are kind of odd, but what can you do? The actual music, though, is amazing as always. Ray is an absolute master of his craft, just insane. And his more unapologetically angsty guitar melodies combined with Gerard's screamier vocals are really the cherry on top here. One last thing I feel the need to mention. Okay, this is really stupid, but if you've ever watched the show What's New Scooby-Doo, this may sound familiar. Yeah, sorry for ruining your childhood show, but I just think that's really funny. Anyways, Thank You for the Venom is for sure one of MCR's most underrated pieces. Man, I don't even know why I'm trying to deny it at this point. I'm Not Okay is admittedly pretty emo. I always defend MCR against the emo allegations when someone brings up the topic, but I have to at least acknowledge that a few of their songs could definitely be considered emo. Sorry. I'm Not Okay is one of the most iconic rock songs of the 2000s, taking its place as an anthem for edgy teenagers who get their lunch money stolen. The music video is incriminating, to say the least. Other than the emo stereotype, this track is just a timeless classic that I've always loved. I'm really glad that I'm Not Okay was able to play a huge role in bringing MCR into the mainstream spotlight, being I believe the first to reach the Billboard Hot 100 in the US. The opening guitar riff is super iconic, and the over-the-top lyrics in the chorus give this track the charm it's famous for. The uncensored version is so much better than the clean version. Those 3 words of difference honestly make a big impact of my enjoyment of the song, surprisingly. I don't really have anything to say that hasn't been said before, but yeah, legendary. You Know What They Do to Guys Like Us in Prison has made quite the jump over time in respect to my ranking. I've always enjoyed it, but in the last few months or so, this track has made leaps over many of the previous entries on this list. Many of the minor nitpicks I have on songs like Thank You for the Venom, such as messy vocals and guitar, are fixed here, where every element fuses together nicely to create a more balanced heavy metal sound. In Thank You for the Venom especially, the guitars were the focal point for most of the track, whereas in You Know What They Do, the vocals and guitar have a much more of a balanced role as the primary sounds. Feature of Burt McCracken of The Used was also a nice addition, most notably in the second verse where he acts as a sort of panicked backup choir for Gerard. The overall anxious and frenetic energy of the song is done really well, especially in the guitar solo with Burt's faint vocals. I just have to talk about the guitar work in particular. The electric guitar in the intro has just the right amount of volume to blend in with the bass and the slower drums. Even in the chorus, the guitar isn't too overbearing, but rather acts as an aid in perfecting the darker atmosphere. The point where the instrumentals are really amazing, though, is the bridge, namely the guitar solo. It's hard to notice, but behind Ray's guitar you can hear what I believe to be Frank just going crazy, like, which is a super cool idea. His lyrics are definitely more difficult to go into as they relate to the concept, at least for me, but you can clearly see themes of prison, whether it's an actual prison or a metaphor for hell. The lines at the end especially hint at the man taking his friends down with him, air quotes. I assume his friends in life were also evil or delinquents like him, which is why he has to kill them. That could be completely wrong, but oh well. I really love this song though, one of MCR's best classics, definitely top 5 of the pre-Black Parade era. Now, getting into the best of the best, we have Helena. Helena is obviously one of MCR's first big hit songs, remaining one of their most popular across all platforms today. It was written about the passing of Gerard and Mikey's grandmother, Elena. Whoever wrote the lyrics for this song, most likely Gerard, did an amazing job at providing some ambiguity in the lyrics. You can find many different possible meanings for this track, the one most clear to me being about someone who's committed suicide, much to the grief of their family and friends. The music video I think also does an amazing job in not restricting the meaning too much, as it can be interpreted in many ways. For the purposes of the video, however, I'll be discussing the suicide storyline. It seems that the song is a lamentation of the family and or friends of this character who's committed suicide. These grieving singers are torn between angriness and sadness over the character's suicide, at times seeming to be angry at the character for leaving them, and at other times just being depressed about it. This theme would be even more applicable in a religious household, where suicide is often viewed as selfish and an automatic damnation to hell. Where the verses are quite obviously from the perspective of the family, the chorus makes more sense as coming from the dead character. I think the video supports this idea. The woman whose funeral is being attended, at least in my mind, sung the words of the chorus right before her death, maybe even as she was fading out. The bridge also, I think, is the dead character regretting their suicide, which is illustrated in the video by the woman coming back to life for a moment to observe the crowd, before realizing that she's already dead and actually can't come back. Everything about the lyrics is just so melancholy and makes you want to cry. The only reason Helena isn't rated higher for me is because I've never personally dealt with the death of a close loved one since I've been conscious. As for the music, it's nothing too special. Yes, the vocals are perfect for the situation, but none of the instrumentals really stand out aside from the chorus. Amazing song though, sorry for going so heavy into the lyrics again, but I think it was needed. To the End is without a doubt one of MCR's most underrated songs they've ever made. I didn't even know it existed for almost 2 years after discovering MCR. Where do I even start? I guess I'll go with the lyrics first. The message here seems to be the man reflecting on the marriage with his lover during life. The start of the chorus is pretty obvious. The couple goes into the marriage knowing that they're ultimately going to destroy themselves and everyone around them, even acknowledging that they will likely die because of their actions. The second part of the chorus, the say goodbye part, looks more like something the man's currently saying to his lover after his death. I mentioned at several points in the video how many of the tracks switch between the man loving or hating his wife, and To the End is definitely on the hating side. He's screaming at his lover that everything she does, that everything she loves will be taken away, telling her to say goodbye to everything that brought her joy. This was definitely one of those tracks where I was most unsure about meaning-wise, so sorry if that's wrong. The actual music, though... Yes, To the End has probably the best guitar solo in all of MCR, I'm not even joking. The part right after the second chorus, before the solo, perfectly sets the stage for the final boss battle. The tempo slows down to prepare for the final stage that is the solo and the final chorus. Solo itself is just insane. Ray is an absolute legend. Again, why are we even surprised at this point? Definitely a top 5 MCR moment, no exaggeration. The last chorus is the cherry on top, adding a bit more intensity and shredding to an already great chorus to really fine-tune the epicness of it all. And the outro is just perfect as well. The background vocals are slightly reminiscent of The Sharpest Lives, and Gerard's leading vocals feel like his final words to his lover as he's fading out into death. The timeline of the story is a bit iffy for me, but I'm more concerned about how the music sounds anyway. One of the most epic endings to any song I've ever heard, to be honest. The final 4 drum beats during the lyric To the End was a perfect way to send off everything. I'm so very upset that To the End doesn't get more attention even in the MCR fanbase. It's far better than almost all of their hits, and it deserves so much more love. If you somehow haven't heard this track, please go listen to it after this video. It's so amazing. Number 1, The Ghost of You. Now, being one of MCR's biggest hit songs, The Ghost of You has been on my radar longer than most of the band's other music. I specifically remember being obsessed with this song as I was getting into the band, especially the bridge, which I'll talk about in a minute. This track is definitely one of MCR's more sad and angry pieces, dealing with themes of loss, regret, and fear. I think The Ghost of You is yet another flashback to the end of Demolition Lovers, where the man and his wife are falling down to their supposed deaths. The difference between this track and To the End is that To the End was more angry towards a lover, while The Ghost of You is sad and regretful, wishing that he could be with her again. Even the first few lines describe the man's desire to be reunited with his wife. The chorus is where he really loses it, reflecting back to the moment where he lost his lover initially back in Demolition Lovers, calling it the end of the world and the last thing he sees. The never coming home line is the man lamenting about the fact that she'll probably never come home to him in death. During this breakdown, the man starts to question whether killing 1,000 men is worth being reunited with his lover, then pondering the things that she was hiding from him in life, and that maybe he doesn't have to do this. He eventually shakes those thoughts away, however, spending the second verse crying about losing her in the first place. Then the second chorus happens, which, My favorite part by far, though, is the bridge. There's just no way for me to describe to you all the different emotions I feel when I listen to the bridge. It's quite possibly one of my favorite moments in music history, and I mean that. The last chorus as well, just like I mentioned with To the End, has an extra layer of intensity that really brings everything together. I love how the track ends so suddenly with those 4 drum beats. No super drawn out outro, unless it's the transition version, and the song doesn't try to take itself too seriously. Overall, man, The Ghost of You is just absolutely incredible. One of my top 10 favorite songs ever made, top 3 MCR, and the music video is great too. I'm a total fanboy for this song. That was my ranking of My Chemical Romance's second album, 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel, as I have 5 more MCR videos planned for the next few months. I'm super excited to continue this series, and I put a list of bands I'm going to cover in the future in the description in case you're interested. If you'd like to, you're welcome to put your own ranking of this album in the comments. I'd love to talk about your opinions too. With that said, thanks for watching, and have a nice day, guys.